I'm 27, and 2 weeks ago I told my father I never wanted to speak to him again. This is going to be long because it's been building for 20 plus years, and writing it out is as much for me as it is to maybe help someone else who grew up thinking abuse only looked like bruises. For most of my life, I thought I was the lucky one. When I was 5, my mum left. That's how my dad always phrased it. She walked out on us. She didn't want the responsibility. I gave up everything to raise you alone. It became his mantra. And when you hear something enough times, you believe it. So I believed he was a hero, a single dad, holding it all together. But the cracks were always there. I just didn't know how to see them. Flashbacks, childhood red flags in disguise. I remember once in 3rd grade, I got invited to a classmate's birthday party at a roller rink. I was so excited. I brought the invite to my dad, and he scoffed. "That must be nice to have parents with money to burn. We can't afford to waste gas on some party." That was the first time I felt guilty for wanting something. Later, I learned he had money. He just spent it on himself. At 10, I thought our budget was tight because he said we were barely scraping by. At 16, I knew better. He had a new flat-screen TV, always had the latest phone, and took weekend trips to casinos for networking. He made me get a part-time job the week I turned 16, said I had to learn responsibility and help with bills. I paid for my clothes, my school supplies, my gas. He said that was normal, that he had to sacrifice everything for me, but he never missed his weekly poker night. And college career and chains. I had a 4.0 GPA, got into a great university across the country, full ride even, but he guilted me into turning it down. Said, "If you leave, I'll be all alone. After everything I gave up for you, you can't just abandon me." So I stayed. Attended community college, commuted from home, worked full-time and studied part-time, watched my dreams dry up while he borrowed money from my account because he was behind on the mortgage, while still posting steak dinners and whiskey flights on Facebook. Later I found out he'd cashed out the college fund my grandparents left for me, tens of thousands, spent on gambling, cars, and who knows what else. The shattering truth. My mother never left. The final straw came 6 months ago. I reconnected with my aunt, my mum's sister, after she found me on LinkedIn. She told me something I still struggle to wrap my head around. My mum didn't leave. She was pushed out. My father lied in court, painted her as unstable, dangerous. He used old journal entries from her therapy as evidence and even bribed a witness. She fought for custody and lost. He told everyone she'd abandoned me, even me. I tracked her down. We talked. She cried. I cried. She showed me letters she'd written over the years but never sent because my dad had threatened to sue her for harassment. I saw the postmarks, the paper yellowing. She never stopped loving me, and I had hated her for over 2 decades. The confrontation. I confronted my dad that weekend. I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I just told him what I'd learned and asked, why? He didn't deny it. He just smirked, said, "You'd never have become the person you are if I hadn't done what I did." Like stealing my future was something he should be thanked for. I felt something break inside me, like a string pulled too tight, finally snapping. I told him I was done. Therapy, fallout, and no contact. I started therapy shortly after. At first, I felt like I was betraying him. Years of conditioning had trained me to believe he was the victim. My therapist helped me see it clearly. He weaponized guilt like a scalpel, kept me small, kept me obedient. Because if I left, he'd lose control. Going no contact wasn't easy. Some relatives took his side, called me ungrateful, said he did his best. Friends I grew up with were shocked. They only ever saw the funny, charming version of him. But others supported me. My mum has been patient, kind, and honest. We're rebuilding something I never thought I'd have. Grief and liberation. I've grieved. Not just the father I lost, but the childhood I never really had. The choices I didn't get to make. The person I could have been if I'd been free. But I also feel lighter. Some mornings I wake up and feel like I'm breathing real air for the first time. I don't check my phone in dread. I don't rehearse fake answers for guilt-tripping calls. I don't wonder what kind of mood he's in before I speak. I just live. And I've realized something powerful. Being family doesn't give someone the right to hurt you repeatedly and call it love. Love is accountability. Love is freedom. Love is not a cage lined with praise and guilt. So, yeah, I cut off my father, and for the first time, I'm starting to feel like I'm mine. Hi again, Reddit. I posted a few months ago about going no contact with my father after uncovering years of emotional abuse, financial betrayal, and finding out he lied about my mother abandoning me. That post blew up more than I expected. Thank you to everyone who shared their own stories or just sat with mine. Reading the comments helped me feel like I wasn't losing my mind. I wanted to give an update because the aftermath has been complicated, but also hopeful. What happens after you drop the rope? There's this weird moment after you finally break free from someone toxic, this dead silence, like when a loud machine suddenly shuts off and your ears are still ringing. That's what it felt like. The first week was peaceful, but I also kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. My dad's silent treatment used to be a punishment. Now it was permanent. No texts, no calls, no fake emergencies, just nothing. I should have felt relief, and I did. But I also felt this eerie, unfamiliar quiet, like I didn't know what to do with all the mental space he used to occupy. Relatives took sides, and some showed their true colours. About 2 weeks after the fallout, my cousin, Dad's side, messaged me. "He's heartbroken," she said. "He doesn't understand why you'd cut off the only person who's been there your whole life." I told her the truth. Not everything, but enough. How he sabotaged my education, how he spent my college fund, how he lied about my mum. Her response: "Families aren't perfect. You just have to forgive and move on." I realised then that some people care more about keeping the illusion of family than the actual people in it. I haven't talked to her since. But I also got a surprise message from my uncle, Dad's older brother. He said he always suspected something was off but didn't know the extent. He apologised for not stepping in, said he was proud of me. That meant more than I expected. Rebuilding with my mum. Reconnecting with my mother has been one of the hardest and most healing parts of this journey. There's so much time we lost. Birthdays, school plays, milestones. And she carries guilt too, for not fighting harder, for not finding a way to reach me. But honestly, I don't blame her anymore. She was up against a system that believed the louder, more manipulative parent. We've started small, weekly phone calls. She visited last month. We went to the beach, just the two of us. She told me stories about her own childhood, things I'd never heard. It's like getting to meet a stranger I was supposed to love my whole life, and finding out I actually do. Therapy and unlearning therapy has been brutal in the best way. I'm learning how much of my identity was shaped around managing my father's moods, how I'd pre-apologise for everything, how I confused obligation with love, how I abandoned myself to keep the peace. One session, my therapist asked me to list things I enjoy doing, not for anyone else, not to be productive, just for me. I froze. I couldn't think of a single thing. That's when it hit me. I never had room to discover myself. I was too busy surviving him, so now I'm doing weird, small things. I tried painting. I suck, but it's fun. I signed up for a cooking class. I went to an open mic night, just to listen. I'm slowly figuring out who I am when no one's controlling me. Closure? Not quite, but something better. People keep asking if I feel closure. What I feel is something different, something better. I feel clarity. I see the manipulation now. I see the patterns. And I see that none of it was my fault. I was just a kid trying to earn love from someone who only gave it in conditions. The grief is still there. Some days, I miss the idea of a dad, the fantasy version I believed in for so long, but I don't miss him, not the real him, and I don't want him back. Final thoughts. You're allowed to walk away. If you're reading this and you're stuck in a situation that looks fine on the outside but feels wrong in your bones, trust yourself. Emotional abuse leaves invisible scars, but they're real, and you're not weak for wanting peace. You don't owe someone access to you just because they share your DNA. Love without respect is not love. Control is not love. Guilt is not love. You're allowed to walk away. You're allowed to choose yourself. I did, and I'm finally learning how to live. Hey again, Reddit. This is part 3 of a story I never thought I'd have the strength to tell. First, I went no contact with my father after years of emotional manipulation and lies. Then, I started picking up the pieces, reconnecting with my mom, starting therapy, and facing the trauma I buried for decades. Now I'm in the messy, beautiful middle, where healing isn't about dramatic moments, but quiet revolutions. This is the part where I stopped surviving and started becoming. Reparenting, becoming the adult I needed as a kid. If you told me a year ago that I'd be soothing my inner child with weighted blankets, affirmations, and snack rituals, I would have laughed. But reparenting is real. It's not just bubble baths and journaling, though those help. It's setting a bedtime for yourself when no one else cares. It's talking yourself down from panic spirals with words like, "You're safe now." It's making the doctor's appointment you've put off for years because neglect used to be your baseline. I started keeping a photo of myself at age 6 on my fridge. Big eyes, missing tooth, hopeful smile. Whenever I want to give up or hate myself, I look at her and ask, would I talk to her the way I talk to me? Usually the answer is no, or is dating with a history. Like mind dating after family trauma is complicated. At first, I attracted people who mirrored my dad, emotionally unavailable, charming, critical when I set boundaries. I thought chemistry meant chaos. I thought love had to feel like trying. Therapy helped me slow down. I started paying attention to how I felt after spending time with someone. Did I feel calm or confused, grounded or like I owed them something? I'm now dating someone who listens, who doesn't treat my vulnerability as weakness, who doesn't make me earn their affection through emotional labor. We're taking it slow, and for once that doesn't feel like fear, it feels like respect. I still struggle sometimes, waiting for the rug to be pulled out, expecting to be punished for saying no. But the difference is, now I notice, and I don't betray myself to keep the peace. Boundaries everywhere, not just with him. Cutting off my father was the boundary that taught me I could survive loss. That opened the door to others. I started setting limits with relatives who wanted me to just talk to him again, for their comfort. I told them, I'm not responsible for his healing, I'm responsible for mine. I set boundaries at work, no more staying late to prove I'm useful. I even set boundaries with my mom, not because she's unsafe, but because we're still learning how to be in each other's lives without walking on emotional eggshells. We've both grown, and we're giving each other the space to do it. Loneliness versus freedom. People don't talk enough about how lonely healing can feel. There were days I wanted to crawl back into dysfunction just because it was familiar, because silence felt heavier than manipulation, because being alone with your thoughts after years of gaslighting feels like staring into static. But there's a difference between loneliness and isolation. I'm not cut off from the world. I'm making space in the world, for people who see me, for friendships built on mutual care, not obligation. I'm choosing loneliness over loyalty to my own harm, and slowly that loneliness is turning into freedom. What I know now. I'm not a victim anymore, but I was, and that matters. I had to name it to survive it. I had to survive it to outgrow it. Here's what I know now. You don't owe your abuser closure. Estrangement is sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself. Healing is slow, non-linear, and often invisible. But it's real. People will call you selfish when you stop being useful to their narrative. Forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's choosing peace over revenge. And most of all, you are allowed to outgrow the people who raised you.